Need to chair, you better hurry, we're running out. Welcome everybody, my name is Mike. I'm president of the Wylie Chamber. You are at our monthly Lunch and Learn. This is a monthly thing we put on in partnership with Wylie EDC. Jason Greiner over there. Thank you for the lunches today from the McAllisters. These are just, basically we want these to be informative, educational, afternoon, 1 hour in and out, and it's all about topics for business, how to manage your business, how to do your business better. It's what we're trying to put together, and there should be some, note cards in front of you? I'm a master. Wow, that was the instruction I gave one to everybody. You're going to get these note cards, and on the back of them there's a QR code. If you would take your phone over that is a survey about today's presentation, but it's also about other topics that you would like to see. And we would really like to get your feedback, because if we're not designing these to meet your needs, then we're all just meeting and eating lunch. And nothing wrong with that, but we'd like to add a little more to it. So today we have as I said, our May Lunch and Learn. This is solutions for hiring and retaining your employees. And we are joined by a couple of experts, one from North Central Texas Workforce Solutions, and then one from Collin College. First, Ms. Keisha Johnson. She's one of 6 business development liaisons with Workforce Solutions from North Central Texas. She joined Workforce Solutions in 2016 in the Workforce Development Unit. The WD team provides strategic solutions through workforce development programs and services geared towards employer engagement, outreach, and workforce partnerships to administer stellar training programs. And she has been, like I say, since 2016 with Workforce Development, and then joining us today from Collin College is Ms. Monica Jones. She is the manager of apprenticeships and employer engagement at the college. And in her role, she's charged with working with employers, academic departments, and continuing ed programs to develop apprenticeship opportunities, learn-to-earn models for the students. She's been with Collin College for 3 years. Her 20-plus years in higher ed include experiences in recruitment, athletic administration, student support retention, and creating pathways to success for all she encounters in her life's work. So I'll ask the ladies to come up.
Good afternoon. I guess it's still a little morning. So I'm Keisha Johnson. I represent Workforce Solutions for North Central Texas, but also the North Central Texas Workforce Board. As Mike mentioned, I am the business development liaison for several of our regions. We have a 14-county region. And my focus primarily is employer engagement, building community partnerships, as well as providing solutions and programs and services to meet the needs of our workforce. Basically, I think there's can you see? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. A little more. And work for. So, basically, we're here today to speak on retention strategies. And today we'd like to offer you a retention strategy that has been tried and true for the past 30 years, for several decades, I should say, in regards to the success of identifying talent, skilled talent. Why can't I talk? I'm trying to talk too fast. But before we do that, I wanted to go over some labor trends, of course, talk about our community partnerships, childcare quality, and our career exploration. Those are the 3 strategic pillars that we've chosen this year for the next 3 to 5 years that we'll focus on in terms of building community partnerships and strengthening those, increasing our child care quality and access. At this particular time, we are identifying what we're calling child care deserts. We're hearing that employers are having, the challenges in folks returning back to work due to the fact of child care issues that mainly the female is not able to return to work due to the fact that there's no child care provided in the community. Or should I say, while she returns to work. Also in career exploration, which today we will provide some information in regards to what is career exploration and those options in terms of programs and services. So before we do that, I wanted to take, just a look back at where are we and why are we there? We've heard over and over again about the labor shortages, the wage wars that are out, and where is everyone over here? Where is everyone? Did everyone just leave with COVID? And so here I have a little quote where it says, there's no COVID paradox, the history is catching up with us. The people shortage was already coming. All 2020 did was act as an accelerant. And what that means is, what we found is that our labor participation rate has been tremendously increased. And what I mean by that is, the working people, or the folks that would like to work, have basically disappeared, is what we're hearing. And what do we mean by that? On an average, we would have around 2 million baby boomers that were retired each year. But what we found since 2020 is that we're actually having over 3 million that are retiring each year. So that's 1 million that we're losing already in our economies, right? On top of that, we've had thousands of Americans who have voluntarily opted out of looking for work. I've been yeah. And that could be, the incentivization from our government and things of that nature, other products and services that were available to them during the COVID times. Then the children and grandchildren of these baby boomers are also not replacing the workforce. And what we mean by that, and what really that's drilled down to, is that our birth rate is at its lowest in 35 years. So we've not been replenishing, we're losing 1 million additional, and then we can say we have about 500,000 that are also, so we're looking at, 1.5 million or so that have just disappeared or not returning to the workforce, right? So we can kind of see where the labor shortage is just kind of compounding on us, right? So a lot of folks are saying, this is all due to COVID, but it's really not. And although we found that 1.1 million people have also left the market on top of the other 1.5 million due to COVID and COVID policies, it's for workforce safety and just not really looking is what we've heard, in returning to work. The working age population has been shrinking since 2008, and the national birth rate, as I mentioned earlier, is at 35-year low. So our next generation of talent shortages, as I said earlier, is just compounding, right? Okay, worked. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is the 14-county region that we service for North Central Texas. And this is just some of the rates that we found in terms of unemployment and unemployment rate at 3% since February 2020. And in December 2020, the UPI rate was 5.5. And I understand why is all this important. And the current unemployment rate is at 3.7. So we are seeing that folks are returning back to work, due to some of the incentivized programs that are definitely cultivated during COVID. At this time, 3.1 million in the population is the total that we've seen returning, and 647,000 of those are millennials in our region. So we definitely have a pool of individuals out that we can pull from. But it's going to take us as employers and community partners to come together and put our solutions, our program services, and our efforts together to definitely not only identify that talent, but to put them through a process and make them realize that there's a career pathway. And that's what we're really here to talk about today. The solution that we're wanting to offer is the registered apprenticeship opportunity. Registered apprenticeship is a tried-and-true approach for preparing workers for jobs and meeting the business needs for a highly skilled workforce that continues to innovate and adapt to the needs of most of our 21st century. Businesses that use apprenticeships reduce worker turnover, fostering greater employer loyalty, increasing productivity, and improving the bottom line. Apprenticeships offer workers a way to start new careers and good wages. Has anyone heard of the registered apprenticeship opportunity before? That's wonderful. We're going to have today. So what I'd like to do is provide you a video in regards to a partnership that we have with an employer. This employer is Bombardier. They're on Railroad. We actually, in this partnership, we applied for the Texas Apprenticeship Agreement, which is an opportunity to defray some of that training cost that employers are always, very skeptical about. And the fact that we know that funds are very low in terms of training. And so at the board level, we're able to apply for this type of grant so that we can assist in defraying costs and as well as partner with our EDC, so that nature for funding opportunities. So if you don't mind, we'd love to show you this video in terms of the apprenticeship.
And workforce solutions for North Central.
It's we apologize. So basically, what we did is figuring out our campaign. But Barney was one of those employers that actually approached us in regards to the labor shortage, right? And the career pathway for their organization. And the folks that they really found they were loyal, that were really looking for opportunities, that lacked the skills, right? And we definitely, we have learned in several conversations in regards to, that's just really our pandemic, really, right? Is that the skills are not matching to the jobs here lately. So, through many conversations, we were able to identify some obligations with this employer and build this friendship. And it's just been a successful. I know you can see the visuals.
And workforce solutions for North Central Texas.
You can tell there's a full moon on Sunday. Oh my goodness. Right. Where's this? So through Bombardier, we were able to utilize the registered apprenticeship as a training model.
And workforce solutions for North Central Texas.
Definitely not that's the first time, right? So I'm sure you're probably wondering, why is workforce with our education partner college, right? We are really joined with it. We always talk every day in regards to it's a part of our pillar of building community relationships that really strengthen the productive and the collaborative that makes up our partnerships and our programs and services. And so through our partnership, we're able to really take what I strategize with the employer, identify those needs, and hand that over to Monica and kind of make that magic work in terms of development of the training plan and things of that nature. And I am just kind of advocating, so we just kind of, this is going to work. Yeah, we can have this. I think it's okay. We actually can just kind of take it from here. With Bombardier, as I mentioned earlier, and Monica can definitely try to instill your magic. With Bombardier, we were able to, as I mentioned, partner with the U.S. Department of Labor, this job could start. So if you decided this was a option that you'd like to take, we would have a more deeper conversation with you and identifying those applications and those skill gaps. From that, we will partner with Wylie College, and she's able to really just marry that development plan in terms of training. And their programs on site at Wylie College, and if you've never been to the technical campus at Wylie College, it's amazing. You should actually take that tour. But as you can see, we partnered with TSTC, which was one of our educational partners to develop that training plan. And we had individuals that were, so we want to say incarcerated, but we actually say second chance, who had the opportunity to come on site and really view the factory as well as identify a career pathway that was coming. We also had one young lady who had been in the hospitality, I believe, industry for years, and she completely switched her career, and she's just loving the opportunity that she's having also with Bombardier. Before I go on, I'm going to go ahead and let you switch into your first
Absolutely. When you're talking about this, and you develop this plan. Now, where did the people come to learn? Did they go on site, the business, or did they go to college to learn it?
So both. It's a hybrid opportunity. I'm sorry. It's a hybrid opportunity. They can come on site at a college, but we also, we can have them, at your site, we can do that as well. It's just whatever works for the employer and your career seeker that has been adopted into their apprenticeship.
And we'll get some examples here.
Yeah.
Just to kind of break it down. So, you want.
Yes, I would say go ahead and and I'll fill in terms of workforce and how we actually bring in the apprentices, because we're able to assist in terms of recruiting those individuals. And what I ask employers to do is, take the opportunity to be flexible. And an example that I give is, it's easier to replace an entry-level position than it is an experienced position, correct? So if you have a local individual who's been with your company, who has, the go-get to actually matriculate through a career pathway, I would definitely give them that opportunity. You can do that through an apprenticeship, because then you're replacing an entry-level position versus, an experienced position, which is much more challenging, right?
If you want to go ahead and skip past that slide with the video on it, because it's not going to work, that's okay. We're flexible.
So we can send this out to you, so if you'd like to see the video, we definitely have an email you so that you can experience the conversation here. But Workforce Solutions would also support college while we're getting the slides together in terms of not only recruitment, but assessment, if there's background checks, or even in terms of uniform. So if they're needing work tools and things of that nature, we can pull those folks from our special programs. If you're open to that, pull a talent. Oh, wait, it's really low backwards, isn't it?
That was your last one.
And we can definitely come back to this. Basically, this is our child care resource. I was going to actually go into a conversation in regards to our resources and bring that around to supporting the apprenticeship, but I think we can just come back around to that, and we'll talk about child care.
So now let's get into the specifics of apprenticeship. I know a lot of people are like, I kind of know. How many of you have heard of, a blacksmith when they actually used to pound out, horseshoes and everything else? That is the origination of apprenticeships. When you're looking in those industries, that was really hands-on and really looked at, I need to teach someone to come behind me. When we got into industrialization within the United States, I'm an educator, so a little bit of history lesson, we kind of went away from that. And we didn't train people. We just said, we'll give them a short onboarding, some training when they get started, and we're going to push them out there, and pray for the best. That doesn't always work. It has worked up to this point, except for when you talk about those extra 1.1 million people who leave the workforce, that knowledge is lost. So all of the baby boomers, all of the people who decided to opt out of their respective career areas, we've lost a lot of knowledge. And so apprenticeship is a perfect way to capture that information right now. And so it's the perfect marrying of employers, local and state economies, job seekers, and educators. You are the most important piece of this puzzle as employers, because again, you provide the job opportunity, and then we get to, and I say get to because it's a lot of fun putting together this plan of how do we support you, how do we provide that training, how do we give not only that practical knowledge and that book learning, but also on the job training. And so that's what we'll talk about next. So for a registered apprenticeship, these are the 5 components, and I won't read because you're beautiful, wonderful, intelligent people, but I will highlight a couple of things. There's a minimum of 2,000 hours up on the job learning. So that is detailed information. You saw John Kusnar up from the Department of Labor earlier. So we work in conjunction with John. He gives us the standards to say this occupation is going to be registered as an apprenticeship. And it's based on the specific occupation because, believe it or not, if you pull us up, we exist in some wonderful governmental database. I know, it's a little scary sometimes. But it says what we can do, what we need to know, and what we need to pass on to someone else. So it's occupation-based. We receive those standards from John and the Department of Labor and say this new person coming in, whether they've been with your company for 5 years and they're learning a new position, or it's a brand new person coming in from somewhere else. But there are standards that outline what needs to be learned in the classroom, and it doesn't have to be formal setting, it can be through continuing education. Again, we have a lot of flexibility that we'll talk about in a moment. But there are 144 what we call RTI-related technical instruction. That's the classroom learning, whatever that classroom looks like. It can be on a Saturday for continuing education. It can be in a formal classroom on a Tuesday, Thursday from 1 to 1:50. However you deem appropriate for that particular apprenticeship to work for your company. And that's what we get to have fun and say, how do we want this to look? That's where we talk about the magic. We get to play a little bit and say, what do you want this to look like on the back end? Do you want someone to go through school first and then go ahead and continue education, or mix it all up and things of that nature? So we get a little chance to play a little bit. And again, the most important piece for that worker is they are rewarded for making progress. So after a certain number of time, and we work with you and the Department of Labor to determine if that's going to be after they obtain this credential in 6 months, after they obtain, if it's a certification in a specific area, then they get this bump in pay. After this amount of time, they get this bump in pay. So there's an incentive. And for the employer, again, we talk with you and have those really, detailed and intrusive discussions. Like, okay, this is the availing wage for this particular occupation. So where do we want to start this apprentice? And then where do we want them to move them up to? And then where they end? Because you want them to be competitive. I know you're all suffering from wage wars. Someone outbids you by 25 cents. So we have those conversations, say, how can we make sure that people are retained in your respective companies? Also, at the end of the apprenticeship experience, they receive a national credential from the Department of Labor. So again, if they decide, hey, I've been here for a number of years, it's great, but I want to grow a little bit, they can grow elsewhere if they want to. And what we try to help employers kind of frame the message, you're not training that one person for your company, you're helping to train a workforce. So that way we can all be very productive, we can all make profits and things of that nature, because again, it comes to the bottom line. And right now we're suffering from not having the prepared and skilled workforce that we all need. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so through this process of apprenticeship, does the business owner pay for the training?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
And again,
there's no guarantee that after he's been trained that he will stay there for.
there's no guarantee if you hire someone. If you hire me today, there's no guarantee they're going to stay. Yeah. So, but this is kind of that learn and earn model that I get to test drive them. If I see after this point in time that, yeah, it's not going to work out, because you take them through the same training that you would, another employee in your organization. But again, it's whether you want that risk of someone just walking in or someone that goes through some formalized training that you get input on over a period of time. So it's really just about whether you want to take the chance up front or later on. Does that answer your question?
Can I interject?
Sure.
Something that's been successful with employers, because that's really a question that comes up very often, is we ask employers to try to utilize it in their performance evaluation, right? And so if you have an employer that does, has earned this opportunity, you can definitely ask them on the back end to stay with you for a couple of hours, a couple of years, a couple of years. So if we provide you this training, you actually obtain this credentialing, you just stay with us for 1 to 3 years or whatnot. That's something that's definitely language from the employer, but we've seen that to be very successful so that you feel like you get your ROI.
So my question to you, based on what I'm asking, is so Jim does, Canada runs, and all of a sudden, so does she go back and say, hey, I need to replace this person? So you get those guys, facilities and buildings, looking for.
For us, we work with Workforce Solutions and the employers. So we, again, this is all a recruitment and retention strategy for all of us to figure out, because I don't have this unending pool of candidates. I know you don't have this unending pool of candidates, and neither do you. But what we do have are different pockets of people. So when you look at, okay, depending on what the industry is, maybe you want to look at a veteran pool. Maybe you want to look at another diverse pool of candidates that you're trying to get in. And then maybe you're looking for individuals who are employed, and we can tap into that. So it's really about bringing all the resources together, because I wish I had that magic wand and say, here's all the people, and we can fill all your spots, but I do that.
Yeah, it's just an opportunity to develop the talent, right, and build that pipeline, which is exactly right. We at Workforce, we strive to develop that talent pipeline through the diverse opportunity of career seekers. That could be veterans, it could be their spouses, it could even be their dependents. It also could be women returning back to work, associated workers. It also could be foster youth, right? It could be our out of school youth that just decided, they're out of school, they've been out of school for a while, they just kind of been roaming the earth for a little bit, and they're wanting to come back to reality and adult a little bit. benefit, right? And so we can pull those individuals in as well. And if your industry or your organization allows for a second chance, we do have a fidelity bonding program where we can bond someone to ensure, the securities for your company and allow, that individual to, definitely get their quality of life back as well. So we do have. So you have the ability to tap into this pool of resources from the beginning. So we're always here. So if that individual doesn't work out, and through the process, really in the weeds, we can have a conversation with you. So when we're developing, let's say, the recruitment plan for your apprenticeship, we can address those issues and say, I'm saying I need 5 apprentices, but that's really interview about 50 folks, so I can identify 10 or 15 individuals that are, and you can do this in cohorts, right? So if some folks fall out early on, you have some backup. Does that make sense?
And I'm going to regular slides, I don't want to be respectful of the other speakers since we had some technology gremlins earlier. But I know him asked about how it's set up. It really is dependent on, the flexibility and what you want as an employer. You can do a hybrid model. You can say go to school first. You can say you'll work this many hours, and you'll go to school at this time. And again, school is relative. It's all about how you want it. Do you need them to have an academic credential to walk away with a degree? Or do you want them to walk away with just some type of continuing education or certification in your respective field? So again, this is all flexible. So I shared this not to say this is it. It's all based on conversation of what you need. The players in every registered apprenticeship, there's a sponsor, employer, and then the provider of the RTI or the learning piece, the school piece, and that's the college. But we can also serve as the sponsor. And again, that just means we're helping with the paperwork and all of those behind the scenes things. So again, we can get into more detail. This is just a teaser. When you're looking at apprenticeship development, who does what? Basically, Keisha covered it. We sit down and we have a conversation. We say, hey, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? We develop the plan, and then we both get out there and promote. That is the quick and dirty of it. Like, we get in there, we say, hey, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly, what do we need to really address? And then we get in there and build the program. All right, and then we do have a Skills Bridge for veterans, and the benefit of the Skills Bridge program, we're looking at apprentices who are veterans who are transitioning out. Their last, however long they have before they transition out, they can be released at least 6 months prior to the end of their term of engagement or not engagement, but their terms of service. So they can be an apprentice working for you in their last few months of being in the military on active duty. So again, it's a great benefit that we can help you connect with.
And just to piggyback on that, one great thing that you brought up funding is through the Skill Bridge and some of the programs that we have available in terms of recurring costs, the government would kick in because they're still really employed with the government, although their apprentice with your organization will cover their salary until they actually transition out and transition to your organization. And we have, definitely there are programs where we can apply for grants and identify other funding opportunities. So please don't think that you're in this alone and that you've got to, develop this budget and this first hundreds of thousands of dollars for training your workforce. We are here to help you also identify those funding opportunities. And we're here along the entire journey. We don't just say, oh yeah, we'll take this information and we're out of here. We're absolutely there the entire life of the situation.
And we'll be around for questions later on. I want to get time to the speaker.
So thank you.
Ladies, thank you very much. That is a lot of great information. We always like to provide resources. It's what we talk about. As a business owner, you need the resources. And I think for a period of time when I got here earlier in the decade, the workforce development was looked at as for bigger companies, larger workforces, and it's incredibly, I think, beneficial to us, and it's been great to see that these programs are focused on one employee, and they are small business, and there are opportunities that you can take advantage of. So thank you both for speaking today. They'll hang out here and we'll have questions afterwards. We do have one more speaker, and our next presenter is a local business owner and Wylie Chamber member. It's Jessica Zuniga, and she owns Beyond Behavior with her husband Joel. They started with one client, May 1st, 2015, and Jessica was the part-time employee at that time. By December 2015, the company had grown to 3 full-time and 1 part-time employees. In January 2017, they purchased their current space in Wylie, doubling their square footage, and quickly filled that center. Since then, the Frisco Center opened in 2018, followed by the Murphy Center in 2019. Currently, Beyond Behavior provides ABA therapy services to over 50 clients with autism and has a staff of 45 employees. Joel and Jessica have 4 kids, Eli, Gabby, Josie, and Layla. Got that one. I want to bring her up, and before I do let her come up, I want to say this was a great example. She presented at our business card exchange, and within the theme of today, it's the changing labor force, or the shrinking labor force. There's also a change in culture of the labor force, and it's forcing business owners who in some cases are maybe in the later ages of that culture to get creative and reevaluate how they approach employees. She has a great story in that exact thing, and that's why we made her come up here and speak for the first time to all these people. But it's worth listening to. Jessica.
Yeah, so this is what I get for opening my mouth at a business card exchange, I guess. Note to self. Like Mike said, I own Beyond Behavior. When we started, it was just me, and then we were one center, there was about 5 of us, and the employees then were really cognizant of like, man, if I call out, it's really going to negatively affect everybody else on the team. We work one-on-one with kids with autism. And then as we've gotten bigger, we've noticed kind of a shift in the thinking. Like, well, if I call out, Jessica can just come up to Frisco and help out because it's not like she works with kids anyway, right? Or that I have anything else to do. And so we noticed a big change at the end of 2020. The last 2 months of 2020 were really tough for us from an employment perspective because people were calling in all the time. And it wasn't a COVID-related issue. They weren't calling in because they needed to go to the doctor because they might get sick. It was, they just didn't want to work. And so we're sitting there, and the Frisco Center was particularly impacted. There's about 15 employees up there. And for November and December, I decided to try and pilot a little reinforcement system where if you worked 40 hours the week before, I would buy you a Starbucks drink on Monday morning. Like, hey, show up to work, I'll get you Starbucks. And there were literally weeks where I would buy 2 drinks out of 15 employees. There'd be 13 that couldn't work 40 hours, okay? So we came up with a plan to start in January of 2021 across all 3 centers. We didn't want to only baby, so to speak, the people that were having the biggest issue because it was creating other issues with the other centers. And so we came up with a staff attendance reinforcement program where we defined excused and unexcused absences, rolled it out to the staff, and said, hey, if you don't have any absences for the first quarter of 2021, I'm adding $100 to your paycheck. If you only have 2 or less excused absences, you get $50 on that paycheck. If you only have excused absences and no unexcused absences, I'll give you $30. And then if you only have 1 excused absence for that quarter, I'll buy you an extra staff lunch for the next month. And it worked. For the first quarter of 2021, we had 27 employees who had no unexcused absences, which was great. You know, like, okay, we're seeing an improvement. Things are moving in the right direction. I didn't think that this would be the ending point because nothing is ever that easy, right? So along with those 27 employees that had no unexcused absences, we still had 10 employees who had too many unexcused absences. They were calling in, they weren't providing doctor's notes, they weren't, and I'm not completely unreasonable, you know, like sometimes you have car problems and they might have to go to a mechanic, and if you can submit a receipt that shows you were somewhere that was an emergency, totally working with you there. That's right, but we still had 10 employees that were absent too much with no valid reason. So we adjusted this for the second quarter where we added in a punisher. Basically, and I'm ABA data nerd, so reinforcement is you get the bonus. The punisher is we're gonna have to start a write-up process if we can't get your call-ins under control. And so the thing that we thought was easiest to calculate and the most reasonable was that everybody had one unexcused absence per month that they could use, and we weren't gonna question it. You know, like, hey, you woke up, you weren't quite feeling right, you know, but you don't think you need to see a doctor yet. Those types of things, you get one freebie a month, and we're not gonna deal with that. But after the second call-in, where you don't have a doctor's note or anything, then we're gonna start the verbal warning process. And then if you have a third call-in, it's a written warning. And we had it all spelled out for the staff, leading up to termination if you can't get your absences under control. The way we work, we are so intense in our one-on-one, where if you're not showing up to work anyway, it doesn't matter. I can find somebody else to replace you, right? That's not what I want to do, but if you're inconsistent working, then maybe that's what's best for us. So, since we've implemented both of those procedures, it's been 4 quarters. The number of $100 bonuses given in 5 quarters from January 2021 to April of 2022 has been 5. 5 people have earned them, which is great. I want people to take time off. You know, we want people to be able to go on vacation, all of those things. The number of $50 bonuses given, 10 people earned $50 in 5 quarters. I can't tell you how many $30 bonuses I've given, which is totally fine. The first quarter of 2022, with our 45 employees, I spent $700 in bonuses for the staff. But the number of phone calls I've gotten before 7 a.m. saying, we're short and I don't know what we're gonna do, 0. And since we've implemented the punishment procedure, we've had 2 employees that have been written out for that. 2 out of 45. One employee, as soon as we talked to her, she burst into tears and has been completely great ever since. The other employee is no longer with the company, and it was her choice, but it was just, she called in once because she had a sunburn and couldn't work. I wish I was joking. She called in another time because it was her birthday. And I don't care, like, take your birthday off, but you know what happens the same time every year? Your birthday, just get over it out, you know? So, and she knew it was her second unexcused absence for both times. And so it's like, if these are not important things to you, then they're not important to me, and it's time to move on. So that has really helped us. And then, of course, because I employ some really smart people, they're like, yeah, this is good, but now that people are at work, how are we gonna make sure that they're continuously doing quality work, you know? And so we came up with a quarterly performance system. Whoops. What we talked about is what qualities do our most valuable employees possess? How can we measure those qualities? And how can we train others to exhibit those characteristics that we value the most? So the way that our ABA Center is set up is we have 2 BCBAs, which are master level certified people at each center. And then everybody else can have a bachelor's degree, several do, some may have a master's degree but not be certified. And then we have people who have a high school diploma and are registered behavior technicians. So it's set up differently, but just because they might have the highest degree level doesn't mean that those qualities are what we necessarily want all of our employees to utilize. So we're looking at what can we do to measure what our most valuable employees bring us, and how can we try and train other people to do that. And this was really difficult. We started it for the first quarter, and we're making some adjustments for the second quarter. But we talked about four different performance areas. The staff knows our core values. That's what's most important to me. Whenever anybody comes into our center, we want to make sure that they feel like they're being treated with respect and kindness. Working with kids with autism, we know that when a parent has a baby, they don't ever think, man, I hope my kid has autism so that they can go to beyond behavior, So we want the parents to feel loved and welcome and that we're all on the same team with them. So the core values was a no-brainer. We talked about session performance. How does the staff interact with the kids and a wide variety of kids as well? Another big thing is certifications and trainings. Are you up to date on your CPR trainings? Is your registered behavior technician credential up to date? It's amazing how many times that slips through the cracks, and putting that on them so that they need to keep track of it instead of me has been super helpful. And then the other thing is daily duties. What's your attendance look like? Are you in dress code all of the time? Do you utilize your session time efficiently? Or are you chatting in the corner with another employee? All of those types of things that broke it down into our daily duties. So, we did this. Luckily, I have staff who are really great with Excel spreadsheets and putting in formulas and percentages and all of that. But we broke it down to if you scored 70% or under 70% on your quarterly evaluation, then it was extra supervision is required and we're going to put a growth plan in place to help you out. If you were between 70 and 79%, nothing bad happened, but you also didn't receive anything. If you scored 80 to 89%, you got 2 extra hours of PTO to utilize. And if you were at 90% or above, you got 4 extra PTO hours to utilize. Talking to the staff, they really liked it because when you look at this stuff, it is an opportunity to get positive feedback more regularly when you're getting called into the office than like, hey, I really need to talk to you. And when people see me now, they're like, oh man, why? But this is an opportunity to provide the positive feedback as well as also the corrective feedback of like, hey, next time I noticed when you were working with this kid that you didn't prompt him right away and he engaged in some problem behavior. So let's try and remember to catch him the first time that he does that so that we don't engage in full-blown behaviors. So we had, for the first quarter, we had 2 employees that scored at 79% or below. 1 employee is no longer with the company. The other one is on a growth plan. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now. We're adjusting our scoring for this because it was really difficult. And when you start looking at everything and breaking it down, it's like, wow, well, that was not my intent with the way we wrote this, or, the certifications was probably scored too high because that's a super easy thing to do if you're even halfway paying attention to things. So how can we break it down so that the session performance is probably a higher factor for it? Always a work in progress. Okay, so, and I'll go through this quickly. Some other things to consider as an employer are what benefits can you offer your staff? And I have a lot of younger staff, so they're not super into like the medical or dental or vision. A lot of them are still on their parents' insurance, but they love PTO, and they love extra pay. So what else can you offer? I offer paid holidays with some stipulations to make sure that if you say you're going to show up to work the day before Thanksgiving, you actually do show up to work. That's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And then we recently started offering a 401k with company match because we were noticing that our master's level certified employees really needed that to stay long term. With our direct care staff, if they're with us for 2 years, that's awesome, but at the same time, they might make $16, $17 an hour, and the older you get and you start having a family, that's really hard to sustain long term. So we started the 401k. Any of our eligible employees who've been there for a year or more can access the 401k with company match, and they do. But it was really to help keep our highest degree staff that are the hardest to find. Some other perks of working for us at BTB. The new hires have the opportunity to complete a lot of the online training before their actual start date working with kids. And we try to get that done at a higher rate so that they're more motivated to do it. It's a 40-hour training everybody's got to go through. Hey, if you do this before you start, that's an extra $800. That'll be yours if you can get started right away. Versus me having to try and work it into our schedule and train them there. We provide lunch once a month for all of the staff, and they never schedule it when I am at the center. Melissa's my director of operations, and she somehow manages. I was like, seriously, you get it again? Like, I don't know. We do a bunch of Beyond the Behavior shirts. Everybody gets 5 shirts. We try and order them every 6 months or so, just because it's important for us to be able to show some semblance of professionalism and some uniformity, and that way they have that readily available. And then the people that we've kept the longest is actually very similar to the apprenticeship. So we have a lot of people who are in master's programs that are studying to become BCBAs, and one of our BCBAs has taken over that supervision aspect, and she is awesome. But we've kept a lot of people that way because we have made their supervision and studying a priority for them to make sure that they get their training needs met. And Nicole is actually 5 for 5 on people who she supervised and passed the test the first time. So we're hoping at 6 for 6 at the beginning of June. Okay, last thing. So feedback from our employees. Our staff want to feel that what they do has value and that they're doing something meaningful, not only for the clients, but for the company. And I know for the longest time I was like, we're working with kids with autism. Like, what can be more valuable or meaningful than that, you know? But it's hard because we can't work with kids 40 hours a week, even if you're trained and you're a full-time employee. Kids call in, go on vacation, something else happens where we call it time off the floor. And so this has been the hardest thing for me to learn. And I'm sure, as most of you may be, I'm a total type A personality. Like, only I can do things the right way, and only I can do things the best way. And so why would I pass off other tasks that you might be able to do? Because I can do it best, and I'll make sure that it's done correctly. And so there would literally be times where kids would be out, and we'd have 2 or 3 staff hanging out. Like, hey, what can I do to help you? I'm like, nothing, it's all great, nothing, you know. And it really created frustration for everybody. It was frustrating for the staff because they had a lot of skills that I wasn't utilizing, and it was frustrating for me because I was trying to do everything and nothing was being done well. So, finally, I gave up some control, and this is just some of the staff who sent pictures in to me. When I figured out that, you know what, maybe I can do some things to let other people help me out, it's opened up my time tremendously, and it's really brought value and buy-in to the staff. So Melissa's been with me the longest. She's been with me basically since the beginning. She's our director of operations. And she is I don't want to say the one person, but she is the main person who will be like, yeah, you're overreacting, you know, or we really need to deal with this. But she also gives the best tours of anybody in the company. If there's a family that is feeling unsure or not sure what services they need, we send Melissa to the center, and she's going to talk with the family and make sure that they feel comfortable. Even if they don't decide to go with us, totally fine. We want them to feel good about the decisions that they make. Tin is a BCBA in Wylie, and her programming is unbelievable. You know, I mean, she can write programs for kids with autism and write behavior change programs, talk to the parents, get all of those things done. I talked about Nicole with her supervision. Carly's a BCBA in Frisco, and she's the most genuinely nice person in the entire company. Like, she's positive, she's happy, but she's not fake, and that has made such a difference. If you follow us on social media, that is totally not me. I had Amy come to me about a year ago and she said, your Facebook page is really sad. I was like, yeah, well, I've got about 1,700 other things to do. You know, it's not a high priority. She's like, but here, I have a way to help you. And she presented 10 different ideas of like, this is what I can do, and then this is what I can do. And she created a job for herself. She's our community relations coordinator now. A year ago, I didn't think that I would have needed one. But she planned her autism awareness event, and she runs our social media, and she pushes me, which makes me uncomfortable, to do other things, but that's okay. And you can go down the list, you know, I mean, Heidi is our parent liaison, where when somebody contacts us through the website, Heidi's gonna contact them back, because it used to be I would try and make those phone calls, but then I would get frustrated because I don't have the time to talk to parents when I know that there's less than a 50% chance of them ever actually setting foot in our center. But Heidi is awesome at that, you know, and so it's just trying to find the different things that add value to your company and finding the strengths of the staff to go with those. Okay, that's it.
Opportunity to circle back, and I just wanted to put a few things on your plate in terms of to think about, and that is, do you know your retention rate, your nutrition rate? Do you know how to calculate, what your retention rate is, right? Have you had the opportunity to really examine your corporate culture? Because as she mentioned earlier with millennials, they worry about how do they feel everything, right? It's all about how they feel. So you want to make sure that you examine your corporate culture and that you're attracting the millennials and the Gen Xers as well. But before, I
was going to add also, we throw a lot of things out about millennials and boomers and Gen Z and all that. We offer things that you can learn what those are and how to speak to working with them in the workplace. This is the first time that we have 5 generations in the workforce at the same time. So we do provide that educational support as well. So, the biggest thing that I will say is you don't have to go at this alone, no matter what it is. If we don't know, we are not afraid to ask questions and go find the answer for you, because we're all about providing solutions, how to support employers, how to support the community as a whole.
do you all have any questions? And then we're going to run through the information pretty quickly.
So, Jessica, so having managed people, I always had the attitude that we're paying you to be here and do a good job. How did you convince yourself that you needed to actually pay bonuses just for people to show up at work?
Yeah, so we have a messaging system, and there were weeks where every morning I would get a notice that like so-and-so called in again, we're gonna have to cancel sessions. And so if we have to cancel client sessions, number one, we're not bringing in any money to pay our staff. Number two, the parents are gonna get frustrated because we keep canceling sessions. And so it was, but I can't fire everybody because then we're just starting over at the beginning, so it was, how can we try to make this work where I'm not receiving phone calls or we're gonna lose clients because we're continuously canceling. It was trying to think creatively, I guess.
And I think to add to that piece, when you think about the different people, I would guess, without even knowing who your staff is, but looking at your pictures, that the person who's doing supervision is probably a Gen Xer and, either my age group or a little bit younger, and you have to plug into what motivates that particular generation and use that carrot, because that hammer and that doesn't always work, but use that carrot to motivate them. So for the youngers, the Gen Zers, that's the PTO. They're like, I get more money and time off. It's like, yeah, I'm in. And so being able to plug into that and understanding your workforce on a whole different level, I think is kind of where that sweet spot is for all of us, and learning how to go through this all together. There's another question.
I'm going to use the word poll, whether it be formal or just kind of informal. Would you kind of Did you kind of poll employees to kind of get a feel for what might work?
Yes, and so we're a little bit different because nobody works on commission. There's no other way to make money. Our options are limited because of what our insurance rates are with the insurance companies, what our contracted rates are. And so talking to them, it was they could always use more money and then we always have time off, But I was thinking, the other things that might work, staff love sweatshirts, like they love gear and apparel and all of that. So if there was something where we needed to add, like, hey, you get an extra sweatshirt or something like that they would go for that too, because it's always, do you have an extra shirt for me? Like, no, I'm gonna be fine. Yeah.
Did you say you were using spreadsheets to keep track of the point system?
Yes, I do say it
on top of that.
My managers did it. So the managers managed the direct care staff, and then Melissa, the director of operations, managed the manager staff. And everything is on our HIPAA compliant. We have Microsoft Teams, and so they have the spreadsheet on Teams, and so we can access it, but I don't mess with it. But if I need to check something like I feel like she's called in a lot recently, let me see what the reasons are, then I can access it there. But I can send the stuff to you if you want, because but Excel stuff.
Other questions? Sounds good enough.
For some of you that have been here before, I just always feel like I truly learn something. I hear something and I'm like, man, I never knew that before. So as I just want to thank our speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules. You know that they're always busy. I want to thank all of you for coming because we know that you have busy schedules. So thank you for investing in the program and coming. Hopefully each one of you were handed a little note card when you came in. And I put a little QR code here. It's a really quick survey, like 2 questions. If you want to add a bunch of comments, we'd love to hear from you. Some of you are first timers to our program. I hope that you take a few minutes, especially to tell us what your experience was. If you're looking for particular subjects, I heard some great ideas for additional subjects, and so we'll be looking for those. Just a couple of these, I'll say, kind of housekeeping things going on. So we are going to pause this program, the Lunch and Learn, for June and July. If any of you guys are like what I see, there's like a mass exodus from Texas during June and July. So a lot of people are gone, and so we are going to respect that and kind of, like I said, take a little bit of time off the program, and but we will be back in August. Now, however, coming in July is our new teacher lunch. So that's kind of a little not to say if you are going to participate as a chamber member, because to have a vendor table is a chamber member exclusive. And if you're going to do that, be sure to get ordering your swag items. We all are aware of all the supply chain problems and the challenges and everything. I hope Pam has lots of nail files on hand, so she should be ready to go. But anyways, be sure to put that in your calendars, July 27th, which is a Wednesday. It's going to be over at Wylie East this year, and we'll be getting more details, but we do want to start talking about, again, that is coming, and make sure to be ordering your swag items. So we do have rodeo coming up in September. So, but before that, next Tuesday, actually here over the event center for the Cross Church, we're going to have Leadership Wylie graduation. So that is always such a fun event to see everybody that has gone through the program, has accomplished that. It's again quite a time commitment. It's about 9 months, and it's one day. But anyways, it is a time commitment to go through that program. So we hope that you'll come out and you'll celebrate with those graduates. We also have a terrific speaker, Colonel Hogan. I'm looking at Mike, double checking. Is that correct?
Yes. Andy Hogan, retired colonel.
There you go. So he's going to have some, I'm sure, great stories, great tips for leadership, which it's always nice to kind of hear those types of things and to refresh us for leadership. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, staff is here to help. I'm sure that our speakers will be around for a few more minutes. And I would like to thank Bob Tillman for his services today with special webs. And thank you for coming out. We hope you have a great day. Have a safe day.